Hey, this is Kirk Hillary.
And this is Rusty Burns, the Kirk and Byrd Show. We are talking about the Colorado victory. Coach Prime, first game at Colorado, and we've got two guys that are very well, actually overqualified to talk about it. We've got Mr. Dwight Vick, Virginia Tech captain, all-state player from Hampton High School, joining us today, and the leader of Victory Life. Welcome to the show, Dwight.
Thank you, man. It's great to be back on, man. Congratulations. You guys are off to a great high school season. I watch all the stuff you guys doing. Keep doing your thing, man.
Thank you. And another person that's no stranger to the show, a part of one of our biggest shows of all time when we had him on to talk about Virginia Tech and their coaching changes. We've got Jeremiah Davis, who was an all-state player at Annandale, played big-time college football at Penn State, and has been a head coach here in Northern VA at Herndon, Westpo, defensive coordinator at Westfield, but now he's in administration. He's as an assistant principal, but he also does help out with Loudoun County, where his son Jeremiah Jr. is a baller. Welcome to the show, Jeremiah.
Hey, glad you guys have me back. It's been a while, man, but we're back in, and I'm bringing that enthusiasm.
Yeah. Jeremiah knows, like, he brings it, man. He brings that fungal. Both of you guys do, and we love having you on. Kirk, why don't you tell people where they can find us?
Just subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at the Kirk and Byrd. If you're watching an episode, feel free to share it. We're going to bring you content like this, and I'm just going to point out Dwight that the people in Blacksburg wanted Jeremiah to be an offensive lineman, so he headed to State College where he could be a defensive lineman. And secondly, Jeremiah, after seeing your son last week, if you're not already the smaller man in the house, you're going to be very soon, and that grocery bill must be tenacious.
We got a couple coming up, man, and so yeah, the Costco trips are
right.
few between.
Oh yeah. All right, so look, man, we let's get started with Colorado. Coach Prime's debut at Colorado. There's a lot. We actually did a two-part, 2 episodes on this back in the spring when Coach Prime made the move from Jackson State, where he was extremely successful. He brought in a lot of talent, but I think people weren't sure if he could do it, or especially get it done very early at Colorado. They had not been a successful program at all. So those are the type of things we talked about. But I tell you, Coach Prime, he knows football, he knows leadership, he's guided by faith, but he also kind of hit it at the right time with this transfer portal, NILs, and it all kind of was a perfect storm for Coach Prime to make this move to Colorado. So look, just give us a little overview of what some of the discussion was and why it was kind of a bit controversial for Coach Prime leaving Jackson State to go to Colorado.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, Rusty. I think from just being on Twitter and always active on social media and talking to a lot of guys that we all know that coach sports, high school, and even college, Deion is a polarizing figure. He's an iconic figure. And he's not the first coach to put HBCUs on the map. I want to clarify that because my mom and dad are products of HBCUs. I went to the Battle of the Bay. I remember going to the Virginia State Norfolk State game when I played in Hampton High School.
Yep.
The Labor Day Classic, I don't want to mess that up, but HBCU football has been around for a long time. I think, if anything, I don't want to give him sole credit, but I feel like he kind of rejuvenated more attention to the program. And I thought, he was going to be at Jackson State for the foreseeable future. I thought like he was going to be there and do some great things there. And then he kind of surprised everybody. He didn't really. If you watch the 60 Minutes interview, he never said he wouldn't leave. He said he would, based on paraphrasing here, he would take the job in so many ways, at least not take the job, but he would interview for it. But then, all of a sudden that happened, and, he got a Colorado, which at the time was considered one of the worst Power 5 jobs in the nation.
Yep.
It's just tough. So, Deion I'm not surprised he had the success he did in week one because I've been a Deion guy, grew up watching him, remember him vaguely at Florida State. I was younger, but I watched him. But then when he was with the Falcons and the Cowboys with the Jerry curl and the chains, and I remember even seeing him, going back and forth with the World Series and playing for the Falcons. I remember he dumped a bucket of water on the reporter. Because Tim. I mean, I've seen some of his lowest and his highest moments. I've always been intrigued by Deion, but I'm not surprised he's doing well because I even used to watch his reality TV show that came on when he had his kids with him. I feel like I've seen his sons and his daughters grow up, with me and my family because we used to watch his reality show, and he's always been a motivator. And I think if you do the knowledge and research, Deion's been around a lot of these young men since they were little. And Rusty, you've talked, a lot on your show about your guys you've known and coached years ago. Like me, I've coached a lot of guys that are now seniors or they graduated. So in a lot of ways, Deion has that relatability where he knows how to push the right buttons. So he is a master motivator, and I think young men respect him. I thought that Jackson State, I didn't feel sorry for Jackson State because he put them in a position where they can build on what he started. And they were years ago, they were a great program. But at the same time, it's just a reminder, it's not just Jackson State, it's a business everywhere. And I do feel like HBCUs, it's good to see people. I know we're going to talk a little later about some other schools in state HBCUs, but I do feel like it's good that kids, the new generation, are reminded like, hey, I can go here and play and get a degree and play well. So I was happy about that.
Yeah. No, you hit all the key points. So one of the things I was going to mention as well is it was a controversial just in that for some people who are, let me just say this. Some people love Deion, and there's some people that hate or just haters. And I think the haters took that as an opportunity to say, hey, look, you didn't stay like you said. But if you know football on almost every level, coaching moves happen all the time. Again, I know if there is a good if you do well in middle school, you might get that JV head coaching opportunity or youth football. If you're doing well as a coordinator in high school, you'll find that head coaching position opportunity. But especially, and you guys know this, especially in college football, we may only recognize the head coaches, but those assistant coaches are constantly moving and making that move to the next job. And this is one of the things I thought that Deion made as a point is, look, I'm here, I'm fine. The money, I don't need the money, but I got these assistant coaches and they're living here in Jackson, Mississippi on an HBCU assistant coach's salary. I think he supplemented some. So what some people didn't realize is he also made the move for those coaches and their families, but also some of the athletes who were great players in HBCU, but he took them with him, and now they're able to shine on the biggest and highest stages. So that's one of the points I wanted to bring out. Jeremiah, what are some of your thoughts?
Doing a little research beforehand, Colorado, Nebraska is the highest selling Colorado ticket ever in the history of the school.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Man.
And so little known fact, and Rusty might remember this, my wife actually brought it up when we were talking about the topic for the show. I wanted to go to University of Colorado. We had a big debate when I was coming out because they beat Michigan.
Yep.
Once they beat them, everybody was on the train. I'm like, yo, the black and gold, I'm going out west. I'm trying to tell you, I'm going out west. And my recruiting went on as it went on, and I'm like, but I'm gonna take a visit. And my coach was like, nah, you committed. You're not taking no other visits. Rusty, we talked about that on previous show. But like Colorado was a wave. And and so now you fast forward, that was 25 years ago, right? We talking 98, you talking Eric Bieniemy, you talking they had a thing going on where they were getting kids from the West Coast, from Southern California, they're getting them to come out to Boulder, and they had a movement. So you found a hidden gem, you know what I mean? Because this is not Podunk State University. This is somewhere that knows winning, right? That
Yep.
has a base of people, right, that support it, and it's kind of tucked away. But I brought up that point about the highest selling ticket is because they're the show. I mean, they are the show right now. They got Twitter names on the back of your jersey, and you don't call them captains. There's leaders and there's dogs, and his son, who wasn't even listed. I watched all night on Saturday. He was not listed as a Heisman Trophy candidate, but you're gonna throw for 5-something and take on this guy's not in the conversation. You're wild. You're wild for that. To take on somebody who was in the national championship game last year, no chance. No chance that the kid like that does it. So they have the star power, but what I think specifically about Prime that you don't think that some people negate is his work ethic. I mean, the guy played 2 major sports. Like I love Bo, but Bo didn't do it very long. You know what I mean? Like Deion did. He found a way to take care of his body. And there's a lifestyle that you portray. He's been portraying a different lifestyle than he's living for a long time. And some people do that in a negative way. He's been doing it in a positive way. He gave you I remember the videos. I remember the rap video.
Yep.
The money.
Must be the money.
I remember that. Like he was portraying, he sold you this is Prime, but he lived as Deion Sanders because you can't do that. You can't perform at that high level. I talked to my son about that. You can't perform at that high level without living a certain way. He promoted himself for longevity to make that money as an entertainer, but lived his lifestyle to fund, you know what I mean, to really do that. So now he's pouring that into kids. He took a guy that played 100-something snaps, both sides of the ball, and now you're in the Heisman conversation. Number 1 recruit in the nation. No, he found somebody that is in his mold, in his likeness. Yeah. Listen, let me coach you. Let me tell you how to go get this money. Okay, but you're gonna go work. And so, like, that's what showed to me when they played was they had been putting in some work behind the scenes. Because I know this well. Football comes down to 2 things: blocking and tackling. That's it. Blocking and tackling. And when it came down to it, they can mash the ball down the field. They could run, or they could pass protect. And they made some big plays on defense when they needed to. And that was the knock. It's like, man, all right, you got these kids. Are you going to be able to hang? Are you guys going to be? Well, no, they can run with everybody. They can knock the bricks off everybody, and they can score some points. So, I mean, I'm very excited about where this is going to take football as a whole, because that flair that he has, I'll go out and venture out. Here goes my hot take. There's some other coaches out here that have that flair and that ability to market people, but that hasn't been okay. We haven't been able to coach this way.
Well, can I chime in? I was going to say that as my next point. I just want to build on that because I was talking about.
Hey, Dabo.
I would
Dabo Sweeney. You might have to change your style, bro.
Well, no, Dabo's situation is because he's not a favor of NIL or the portal. Right. And he doesn't like the portal or the NIL. But to Jeremiah's point, I'm glad he said, anyone that doesn't know this, you must be living under the rock. I'm from the 757. I'm a VA guy. And I grew up playing for the Aberdeen Raiders. I lived in Woodsong Projects. I lived in Stewart Gardens. I had a lot of basketball coaches. I played for Aberdeen Raiders basketball, played for Boo Wins back when he was looking for gym space, when he had just 3 teams. And we had a lot of coaches in Tidewater that looked like Deion, that acted like Deion. But I also take pride in the fact I played for the great Frank Beamer and Mike Smith, phenomenal Hall of Fame coaches. And that way works. But I've always felt Deion ways works too, because even my youngest daughter, who's in 8th grade up here in Gainesville, Virginia, she was like, we were all, around the TV when it was an iconic moment. And my daughter said, wow, he's got on chains like you, Daddy. And then my son, he was like, yeah, he's got that drip, and they would just talk. The kids love that. And I think to Jeremiah's point, if he can keep and build on this, we are a copycat society when it comes to winning and branding and making money. And I think Colorado, and again, he's got to win because now the target gets bigger. But if they can build on this, you're going to have more schools like, let me look at this guy, because it's hard for African Americans to get jobs in coaching. Todd Washington, who coaches with the Jacksonville Jaguars, tells me all the time how hard it was to get in the NFL. He used to coach for the Ravens when he won the Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin's talked about it. And like, I don't want to get too deep with this, but just like with the Bear Bryant situation, there were a lot of schools that did not want to integrate. You can watch the great movie The Express with the guy Ernie that played up at Syracuse.
Ernie Davis.
Yeah, Ernie Davis. And when him and Jim Brown did their thing, all of a sudden people were like, hold on now. We need to open this door. So Jeremiah's on to something, man. Like, for real. Because Deion, if he can keep this going, because there's different ways to motivate kids. That's all I want to say. You know, Rusty, you've coached track, football, and basketball. You ref. It's not about black or white, so to speak. It's about relating to the kids.
Yep.
You know, and I just think sometimes these programs that we've seen suffer on the high school and collegiate level is because sometimes the coaches don't evolve. They kind of become outdated. I don't know what a TikTok is. You know what I'm saying? So,
yep.
Yeah.
I was just going to chime in that he was branding like they're doing now with TikTok, Discord, and all of those different things back in the 80s. Dwight, he played at Lane Stadium. He defended Nick Cullen in the fall of 1989. He was flamboyant then, and he wasn't the primetime neon Deion Sanders, those types of things. He's not faking either. He's being legitimate. And outside of the football, I don't know if you guys have watched any of like the documentary footage of his speeches and all. He's sitting there telling the guys, we got you covered on social media. We're recording everything. They're going to chop things up and that branding that's out there. So, I mean, there's the football side of the house, but there's also the branding and the way that we do business now that's never going to be the same. And if guys like Dabo Sweeney, my fraternity brother, same age as me, went to Alabama, if he doesn't adapt, he's going to fall behind. This is the new way of doing things. If you don't like NIL, you can't turn the clock back. If you don't like the transfer portal, that may get changed. But this whole marketplace and the way Prime does it, and he doesn't conform. He does not conform. And his success, as I think, is a lot sweeter because he's not a conformist and he's never changed. He was this way back in 1990, 1991. Wow. That was good about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry Curl, man.
Yeah.
He got a soul glow. He got a soul glow.
What I like about Deion is also just the fact that you know, he's willing to say the things, you know, with true, honest belief that it's going to be fulfilled. I mean, he's saying things, and you know, we all never know what's going to happen, but you know, with the way he has confidence, I think you can have that confidence when you like Jeremiah says, in the back of it, you're putting in the work. When you're putting in the work, you can feel and you can project that confidence. One of the things I wanted to ask you all about is that was clearly a great victory. It was a great victory, one for him, for the University of Colorado, for the people, the administrators that took the chance in hiring him. Jeremiah, when you talk about the ticket prices, I know Prime is getting probably paid well. Not the high, like he's not getting Nick Saban money, but I believe this man is already more than paid for himself. When you talk about a school that was actually in the deficit and didn't have the funds when they hired him, but I have to believe that a lot, I mean, when you talk about jerseys and tickets and all those things, he's already made them a winner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely he's boosted. The thing that a coaching friend of mine told me this about players and just people in general is, do you add value? You know what I mean? Like, you know, do you add value? And the other part of that is problem solvers make money, right? And so he's done both of those things. You know what I mean? He's added value to the university. The first thing I said is their recruiting tent is going to be full next week. I mean, there's people flying from New York State, the Bahamas, whatever, to be on that just to be on campus, right? Yep. So, you know, 5-star guys, whatever, they just want to be around that this next week. Like this Saturday, they coming on Friday. They called their recruit coach, say, I'm coming, I want to see the show. That, and I was a senior in high school this year. She's like, so what's going on in Colorado? You know what I mean? Like, so when Dwight Cousin when he started running around the field, right? All crazy at Virginia Tech. People started applying to college.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
wasn't.
enrollment went up.
The enrollment went up. You know what I mean? Like that's a tangible. That's part of this business. Like that's part of this business aspect. And so like that's one thing I think that's happening now off of one win.
Yes, absolutely. Look, Michael Vick, Dwight Vick, all those guys. What you all did is Kirk, you went there, but I tell you what, the profile of Virginia Tech has grown substantially over the last 20, 25 years. That when they started their bowl run around 93, that did nothing but raise their profile. Look, it got them into the ACC.
Well, Rusty, to your point, that was a goal of ours, and there are key players that I'll always keep close to my heart that help elevate the program. Cornell Brown, Maurice Shasejo, Tyrod Taylor, Kevin Jones, and Mike Vick. There are a few other guys too, Macho Harris, but Macho came, we were already in the ACC. But Maurice Shasejo, the guys before Maurice were great too, Will Ferrell and all that. But that time when Maurice was a Heisman candidate after the Independence Bowl, you don't get Druckenmiller and Mike, because Tech wouldn't have been good. So you're right, Russ. I just want to chime in and say that you're right. Like those key players, Cornell Brown, Lou Holt said he was the best linebacker in the country. And he only blemish on his record at EC Glass was he lost to Allen Iverson in the state championship. Allen Iverson could have been stopped that year by anybody. So Cornell Brown choosing Tech that same year with Antonio Banks, and that same year he plays a freshman along with Antonio Banks out of Warwick High School. They beat UVA at UVA when UVA had the turf, 17-10. And UVA was the flagship program of the state back then. I was a UVA fan, and I was kind of in between. Florida was on me hard, and I was like, yo, Tech's on to something. And at the time when I came in with a really highly profile class. So I just want to chime in and say you're right about that. Like enrollment, you're right, Rusty. You and Jeremiah are both right. It does a lot.
It can also, and I'll give you another example. My school, VCU, having gone to the Final Four, raised our profile greatly as a university.
Oh, yes.
I mean, also.
The fact that for the last, probably 20 years, every year when you sit down to fill out your brackets, you're seeing VCU. And we may go out in the first or second round, but it's a branding. It's a branding. And people know about our style of play, the kids, and we're getting those athletes. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is if you bet that Colorado, I think if you had gone on DraftKings, the over-under was like 3.5 games for Deion to win. Now, he could still not do that, but right now the trajectory, I'm sure that line has changed. He's already got one, and I think that first game against TCU was one that people probably definitely thought was an L. They were double-digit predictors to lose about the spread. But what I want to ask you all about is this: do you think that if they lose to Nebraska, or let me just say because the next couple of games they're playing Nebraska, Colorado State, Oregon, USC. So, they could go 3-0 and then run into some tough games with Oregon and USC, two ranked teams. But but if they slip up with a Colorado State or Nebraska and go 1-2, what do you think we're going to hear?
That ain't going to happen.
I mean,
I'll just chime in real quick. I want Dwight to go. But did y'all see the video of downtown Boulder when they won? Those people are going crazy. This is not a fluke. Travis Hunter, he got him to go to Jackson, Mississippi from Sewanee, Georgia, which is metro Atlanta. Atlanta is the college football capital of the world. So for him to do that, I think that, and they've got a unique situation out there. I do believe they'll beat Nebraska. That Oregon game could be interesting, but I'll let Dwight go. But I think it's going to be interesting when he's there for a while. There's kids in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach getting Colorado offers right now. So,
what? Really?
Oh yeah, there's Colorado's offers in Virginia. Heck yeah, I don't want to name
Wow.
any kids, but yeah, there's Colorado offers.
Well, there's a kid named Chaz Wallace. He was a D-tackle defensive end at ODU last year. And I was texting him in the offseason. I can say this now because he's officially transferred from ODU to Colorado. And he was in the portal. And this is before Deion. Well, this is when Deion had taken the job. And this is after, Colorado went 1-11. Tech, he was choosing between Tech, Colorado, and a few other Power 5 schools. And he's a Virginia guy. He was at ODU, and me and him were talking. We were texting. We had a great conversation. We were connected to a mutual friend, and he went on his visit, and I knew he texted me afterwards and was like, "Man, I'm going to Colorado." Like, and this is before they even did anything. Now, I don't know if he's in the too deep. I know he was ODU. He played, and he was good, and he was sought after by quite a few schools. So, with that being said, the biggest thing. I don't know what the over-under is now. I haven't checked, my little sites I go to. But I will say this. The biggest thing, everybody on this pod right now has played and coached, right, on some level. And I know for me, the best thing I learned playing for Hall of Fame coaches, even back when I played at Aberdeen, rec ball, Aberdeen Raiders, and I played for some great coaches. I mean, I feel like everybody was at Aberdeen, but this is Dora Miller, Aberdeen, Lindsey, Fox Hill, everybody played rec ball back then. Was how are these guys, and this is what I learned playing, how are they going to handle high expectations? Because success breeds more expectations. Deion has been in that position his whole life. He embraces that moment. He kept saying in the presser, Rusty and Kirk and everybody, Jeremiah, he kept saying, now y'all believe. And now he said, at first, everyone didn't believe. I believe him when he says that, but here's the thing. You're going to get a bigger target on your back because now you're calling out the media. You're saying, I told you so. I know from playing, it's not about playing D1. You can play D2, D3. When you play college football and basketball, there are no guarantees. Yeah. I've seen Boise State beat Oklahoma. I've seen teams. I was a kid, but I remember Villanova shot, 89% against the Hoyas? That Hoya team was loaded. So I mean, I just think, they're going to win games.
I seen Duke beat Clemson.
Yes.
That ain't the same Duke everybody's thinking
But that Duke team returned A-stars on defense. They won 9 games the year before.
I know about it.
And that coach is for real. But still, you're right about that. From their eyes, it looks like it's not supposed to happen. I think my only concern for Colorado is how are they going to handle expectations? Because Nebraska is going to be amped up. They are desperate for a win. And Oregon and UNC have been there. Like UNC got Caleb Williams, man.
Yep.
I mean, that guy is the truth.
Yep.
And, so again, I mean, I'm excited for him, but I mean, I just hope this isn't it for Colorado because if he doesn't build on what he does, people are going to forget last year they only won 1 game. They're going to be like, oh, you guys are pretenders. It's just real. I mean, how many guys have we seen coach at this level have a really great first year or a few games, but then come the months we remember the most, October and November, they kind of fall off?
Yeah.
Listen, I saw somebody one time before he retired. I remember, I'm always on Twitter, and I saw somebody say, we got to get rid of Bob Stoops. Oklahoma under Bob Stoops was every year in the playoff, BCS, Alliance Bowls, whatever you want to call it. And then they just couldn't beat a team or whatever. They couldn't win a game or so, and it was like, he's got to go. So I don't know, man. Deion's created a monster of expectations on Rusty, and I just, Nebraska, they should win that game, but Oregon and USC, especially USC is really, really good this year.
Yep.
I think now you get into the X's and O's of it. The players, you got to convince a team, and I've been there. You got to, if you're playing a different opponent or somebody you think you should beat, they were favored 20.5. TCU was favorite and coming off a national championship. You like, oh, we gonna toast these guys. Like, you know what I mean? I don't care who we brought in there. We about to toast them. And then now that you don't make a 3rd down or 4th down play, or you get a pick, and now we're coaching a little different. Now we're paying attention to what way the quarterback rolls out when he's under pressure. Who's the weak tackle? How the receivers are standing. Not saying those guys weren't coaching against them before, but now you're like, I don't want to lose. I don't want to be next on Deion's list, right? And so, I agree with Dwight, like you step up your coaching, you step up your playing, your players step up their expectation. They're playing against a different opponent. I'll say this, that confidence is a thing though, that and again, we've been around sports for a while. When you get the like this, and I'll put it this way, we're coaching right now. If it's not natural for a person to run their body into another person, you just don't do that. Your kids go to school 8 hours a day, and they're told, keep your hands to yourself. Don't do that. Stop pushing. Don't do that. And then come 4 o'clock, it's go smash his face in and rip his face mask off. Right? It's just not natural. or promote it within our society. Right? So you have to build confidence in it, because everybody's not a face melter. Right? You know what I mean? Like, everybody's just not like that. So you build tackling confidence. You tackle the bag. You tackle the person holding the bag. Then you tackle a person. Right? You know what I mean? And the confidence that was put into this Colorado team, which was displayed last weekend, was put in the summer, in the workouts, and now it's bleeding out. They're not establishing confidence after the TCU win, right? They're confirming what they thought. So I think it's a train that's running forward. I think they're going to match some athletes. They're going to have to find some defense, because they can't give up 42 every week. You know what I mean? Because you ain't going to be able to score 45, and somebody's going to scheme you out of that. Somebody's going to just run the ball and take time off the clock, and then you're going to be stuck throwing the ball down the field. There goes a pick, and now the game's over. They gotta work on their kicking game. You know what I mean? All of those facets come in, but the confidence is unparalleled. We've seen teams come along. I think it is, and probably won't even remember. Culpeper High School won a state championship out of nowhere. Like, they've never sniffed it around again. It was like in 99 or 2000, right?
They beat Hampton.
That's what I wasn't going to bring that up, but I do.
I was looking at you sideways when you did it. I was like, you could have picked all these examples. We were going for our 5th straight. Marcus Higgins was the quarterback.
Yep.
So that's my senior year of high school. Me and Mark, we were saying he's top in the state. I'm right down in there. But I remember that, like, but then it just took a win, and then they get rolling, and now they get rolling. So this thing is if they start off 3-0, then why not us starts to be the deal. And then, you know what I mean? And so you go down that confident track. So who knows, man? But I do think, though, there has to be some humility in it. And I think, I don't know him personally. I've only met him probably twice in my life, but Deion Sanders does have that humility about him. He's not going to he's going to give the media what they want. He's going to make money. He's going to make
Jeremiah, don't you think, one thing we haven't brought up, and I know we're getting ready to switch topics, but really quickly, don't you think Deion is going to be Deion as a coach and a motivator, and he's great with the press, he's great with his players? But isn't the sign of a really good team not just about the head coach, but his assistants?
I have a list of the assistants pulled up, and you know what he did? He got people that aligned with his vision, and he got what his kids needed. You know what I mean? He got what those players needed in those coaches that he has on that staff. Yep. And that's you can see that. So I watch sideline body language, and you can see that in their sideline body language. How many teams? I can tell you right now, something's going on the sideline at Clemson University. You can see it. You can see it. There's something going on the sideline, whether it be the coaches don't disagree with the NIL, or this person left. You know what I mean? Now you watch that Colorado sideline, and they're working, they're meeting, they're talking, they're you know what I mean? There's cohesion. So that's a big deal. I mean, that's a huge deal. And so it goes a long way.
I would say, and Dwight, you might have actually been on that sideline. I think that sideline before last year at Virginia Tech, it wasn't quite.
No,
it wasn't.
No, I know it wasn't, and I've seen it on all levels. And Jeremiah, that's why I wanted to ask Jeremiah and you guys that point out that, because we always going to focus on the Lauren Johnsons and the Daryl Overtons and the Mickeys at Stonebridge. But I'll know one thing: the success Mickey's had at Stonebridge, you're not going to have it without his assistants. I talk to my good friend, head coach Sherman Rivers of Patriot High School basketball all the time. And I watch games. And Rusty, you officiate, and you guys got y'all podcast, you broadcast, Rusty. You can look on a court or a field and you look at that sideline when the player comes out. If that assistant or assistants don't greet them and talk about things, there's a disconnect. And that's why I brought it up, because I think Deion is going to get the attention because he's Deion. I mean, he is iconic. People like him and Michael Vick are amazing to me, and Bo Jackson, those kind of guys. But from a coaching standpoint, those adjustments at halftime, because I think the saying goes, you improve your most between week 1 and week 2. So a lot of that comes down on his assistants, man, because the win was amazing. But from a football perspective, Jeremiah pointed out, and I saw it too, because I had that game on. I was looking at it. I didn't know they were going to pull it out because their defense, wasn't stout. Now, TCU can score the ball, but you can be opportunistic, but eventually you're going to have to stop somebody. There's going to be games where they're going to play, ground and pound and control the clock. So we'll see how they adjust, man. Are they going to be innovative on offense? You got a Heisman candidate quarterback, but people are going to scheme him. They're going to take shots. They're going to hit him a little bit harder. It's just football. So I always look at the assistants, because one thing I learned from the coaches I played under, and I go back to my guys, Mike Smith and Frank Beamer, we know who Beamer's assistants were. I mean, Bud Foster. I mean, really? I mean, and then, Mike Smith, we had Coach Alvis, man, and Coach Mitchell. Those guys were, and Coach Woodrow Wilson and Gumpton and Gilliam, those guys knew their stuff. They would talk the most sometimes during halftime.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on coaches is, Bethel, when we won our state championships in the 70s, one of the keys was that assistant coaching staff led by not just but Coach Charlie Brown, who went on to coach at Hampton University. His sons, great players at Kickerton High School. But the next time they won a state championship was when they had a tremendous coaching staff. They had DeRocky, they had Jason Watt, they had the Incos, the brothers and dad, and that staff. Because when a coach, not only the head coach, but when a head coach respects his assistants and then he empowers them and they can say stuff and he can take it or not take it, that's when you really got something. And I think the same can be said for a lot of very successful programs that we've seen over the years. Look, Kirk, I'll let you say the last part on Colorado, because we could do this forever. I'm sure we'll have times when he won't win, or it won't be, or he may win another big game, and we'll come back and we'll talk. But I think my last point on Deion is this. People talked about the fact that he brought in 50, 60 new players, and how are they going to adjust and play together? Well, look, that is the way college football is. I think ODU had about 50 new players. Coastal Carolina had about 50 new players. Liberty got a lot of players. That's the way things are happening. So you don't have 3 and 4 and 5 years to figure it out. A lot of teams are going to have to learn to get this thing figured out, because it's such high turnover. Whether you want it to happen because you're bringing people in, or whether you don't want it because people are leaving, it's the way it's going to be.
Kirk is, by the way, Juju Preston at Freedom has a Colorado offer. Deion offered him. So, I mean, I bet you Coach Overton knows all about him and the recruiters and things like that. I would just say that I was just thinking this the other day. We haven't had an iconic player in Virginia in a bit. We've had some unbelievable players. We've had Ronald Curry, Michael Vick. We've had Percy Harvin, Terry Kirby before social media was quite popular. And I feel like it's the same way in sports right now. We're not necessarily talking about, oh my goodness, this is one of the best ever. So for us to have this as fans, I think it's a very special time just to follow him, to see how he's doing. And then his detractors, for whatever the reasons are, that's a whole different conversation. That makes it more interesting, that makes it easier to follow. And you better believe there's people in Montana, there's people in South Dakota that want to know how Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes are going to do against Colorado State and Nebraska. Colorado is going to be on in sports bars all over the place. They're going to be in Wyoming and things like that. And I'll say this, he paid for himself before he ever coached the game with tickets and apparel. And it's going to be pretty amazing. And if guys like Dabo Sweeney don't adapt, they'll be in trouble. I will say this, Brent Pry gets it at Virginia Tech on the the social media and how to build brand. He is out there. He is out there. He is out there. He was on the field with Jeffrey Overton this weekend. He was on the field with your guy from
Nathaniel Wright.
Glover. He was out there, and it's just like, and that is ubiquitous everywhere. I'm not seeing that with a lot of other coaches, so it's exciting what Dean's doing.